Trey Lance has undergone surgery for his ankle injury, and in this video, we're going to go over the full details of the medical report, as well as talk about how we classify these injuries and why there's actually a silver lining, and this is better than it could have been. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and if you're new here and enjoy learning about injury mechanisms and the underlying anatomy, then be sure and subscribe to this channel and leave a comment down below with what you learned. This was yesterday's play where Trey Lance injured his right ankle, and we found out that, of course, this was season ending. He underwent surgery earlier today, but if we look back at the replay here, remember it's the right foot. That foot plants into the ground, anchoring that into the lower limb, and then his knee falls outward, pushing his ankle into a position that we often see a high ankle sprain occur. And as we'll talk about with our anatomy model, can ultimately lead to this cascade of events that can result in an ankle fracture and dislocation. The statement from the 49ers detailing the full extent of his injuries actually provides some more detail that makes this injury less significant than it could have been. So if we look here, surgery is performed at Stanford Hospital to repair two injuries that Lance sustained. The first was a fibula fracture, and the second was ligament disruption. Notice they don't say anything in here about the tibia. That's the main shin bone, the main bone that forms the leg portion of our ankle joint. The fibula is the smaller bone on the outside that we'll look at, but the fact that this was just a fibula fracture and no tibia fracture is definitely a positive thing. With our biodigital anatomy tool here, the fibula is going to be this small bone on the outside of the lower leg. It forms this bump on the outside of the ankle called the lateral malleolus, lateral because it's the outside of the body, and then the malleoli are the two bumps on our ankles. So the one on the outside is the distal or the end of the fibula. The one on the inside right here is the lower or distal end of the tibia, the big shin bone. So the injuries that Lance sustained were a fracture of this fibula bone and disruption of these ligaments, but thankfully nothing to the tibia or the talus that forms the rest of the ankle joint. Next, I'm going to teach you how this mechanism leads to this type of injury pattern in something called the Weber classification. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. This video is sponsored by Thrive Market, an online membership-based grocery store on a mission to make healthy living affordable and easy for everyone. If you're trying to buy organic groceries or things like eco-friendly household cleaning supplies or personal care items, it can be really stressful because oftentimes these products are either hard to find and get access to, or they can be really expensive. And that's where Thrive Market can help. They can help you cut your grocery bill by 30%. You can shop for thousands of best-selling organic food items and natural products that you're gonna save money on compared to standard retailers. I'm always snacking at work, so I filled that craving with my order. Organic soup, perfect for the upcoming fall weather. Even personal care items like some deodorant. Household cleaning products like the sink scrub. Even baby food items, and can't forget the cats. Shop easier by filtering their online catalog by diet or lifestyle types or your favorite brands or products. Click the link in the description or go to thrivemarket.com/BrianMD to get 30% off your first order and a free gift up to $50 when you sign up for Thrive Market. Make shopping for organic groceries and everything else you might need for your home more affordable and efficient by going to the link down below, thrivemarket.com/BrianMD, to again get 30% off your first order and that free gift up to $50. Thank you again to Thrive Market for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to our learning. This ligament highlighted in yellow is called the AITFL. It's what we think of as our high ankle sprain ligament. You'll hear it referred to as the syndesmosis, basically joining the distal fibula to the tibia. What that does is it anchors and secures the mortise of the ankle joint. If this ligament is disrupted, then there's nothing keeping the tibia and the fibula together, and so depending on how much force is transmitted between that joint, these two bones can move away from one another. That talus is my fist, and then the tibia and fibula are going across the top. So if that talus rotates one way or the other, it pushes those two bones apart, stressing this ligament, that high ankle ligament. What this means is if the foot is planted and then the foot gets rotated outward in external rotation, that twists the talus, putting stress on that AITFL ligament and leading to this potential series of injuries that can culminate in a fracture dislocation. As Lance steps and plants with that right foot, it anchors the foot into the ground, and then as the defender falls on him, that forces that ankle and foot into that externally rotated position, which is going to stress that syndesmosis, keeping the tibia and the fibula together, stabilizing that ankle joint. So that's likely part of this ligament disruption we've read about, that syndesmosis or that AITFL ligament. Now, also on the inside of the ankle is a group of ligaments called the deltoid complex, and this is oftentimes injured as well whenever we see a dislocation or a fracture like this, just based on the instability that we see with the ankle joint. So these would be the two main ligament complexes that I'd be worried about with that specific ligament injury. The fracture comes in because of where that energy ultimately gets transferred through that whole joint complex. So if you think about the energy from that force, from that injury, starting kind of on the inside as it gets twisted, it's going to travel up through the syndesmosis and then exit kind of up into the fibula, up into that bone. We classify these types of fracture patterns of this into the fibula with something called the Weber classification. A Weber A is going to be the least severe. That occurs below the level of this syndesmosis. You don't need surgery for that. It's not that big of an injury. A Weber B occurs at the level of the syndesmosis. This can result in an unstable ankle and potentially be something that needs surgery. A Weber C, which is what I suspect happened with Lance, is when the fracture occurs above the level of the syndesmosis. So the syndesmosis divides everything. Below, Weber A, not that bad. At it, Weber B, you have to do some more testing. Above it, Weber C, the ankle joint is unstable and you need to do surgery. The X-ray is just as important to tell us about the stability of the ankle joint as it is the fracture itself. So yeah, we'll obviously see the fracture here, but we can get clues about the stability of the joint based on the gaps in the separation we see on the X-ray. Specifically, there's spaces called the medial clear space right here between the medial portion of the tibia, the medial talus. We can look at the tib-fib clear space between the fibula and the tibia, and then also the tib-fib overlap. All of those three measurements tell us about the stability of the ankle joint whenever there's been some sort of ligament injury. There's specific measurement cutoffs we use, but the X-ray tells us more than just the fracture. Pro tip, if you're reading X-rays and you see a big increased medial clear space or decreased overlap, but there's no fracture, make sure you go look up at the knee because there could potentially be something called a Mason-New fracture where that energy traveled all the way up the leg and exited up at the high portion of the fibula, causing a fracture at the knee. Overall, this is better news than what could have been because there doesn't appear to be any other fracture to the tibia, the shin bone, or the ankle bones. This is basically a very severe type of high ankle sprain. Remember, like an ACL tear, there's some injury mechanism that then leads to different outcomes based on how severe those forces are. Similar to the ACL tear having a spectrum, you can have a mechanism for a high ankle sprain that can either be a benign high ankle sprain or can be significant enough that it leads to a fracture and a dislocation. These can certainly be much worse where there's compound fractures, you can affect the cartilage and really the joint. But what we've heard about for Lance is certainly best case scenario, all things considered, and should bode better for his long-term prognosis. That's it for the video, everybody. I hope this update was educational. Let me know down below what you learned from it, and until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.